Our powerhouse trio of MPs have lined up. They're anxious to get disagreeing with each other, so let's get them going. Ruby Sahota is a Liberal MP from Brampton. Shannon Stubbs is a Conservative MP from Central Alberta. And Rachel Blaney is a Vancouver Island NDP MP. She said I said Winnipeg last time, or Manitoba or something. I didn't. I did. Maybe I did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, let's not talk about it. All right, you got to vote tonight. You could go all night long. And I'm just wondering if you brought your sleeping bags and your pajamas and all that sort of stuff. Ruby, I got to ask you, since this is all about trying to get a national security advisor who whispered everything into journalists' ears about this India trip that you were on, by the way, where this Mr. Atwal was invited to a reception. He did have an attempted murder conviction to his record, big foo-for-ah. Some people thought that was India trying to embarrass Canada. So what is wrong with having this man, this national Daniel Jean, come before MPs and at least say what he told journalists into their ear?
Well, first of all, I mean, our security minister has said that he was invited. It was a mistake. We rescinded the invitation once it was realized who he was. So moving on from that, you know, our national security agencies are very competent, and we don't want, you know, right now it feels that the opposition is just trying to destroy their credibility, and their interest is keeping Canadians safe and Canadian interests first, and doesn't really matter what other countries are doing. So they're trying to protect Canada, protect our national security. And we really do feel that this is just a ploy to destroy their credibility. And so there's no need for it. We trust our agencies, and we're going to continue to do so. They're some of the smartest and brightest in the world.
Nothing to see here, Shannon. What do you keep pushing this for?
Well, because if one wants to talk about credibility, then I think all of us can have a discussion about the Liberals' consistent inability to keep their promises. So you'll remember that they said that transparency and accountability was one of their major priorities. I think even at one time they said they would be the most transparent government in Canadian history. Of course, I think even on your show last year, the Information Commissioner said, in fact, there's never been a government more difficult to get information from
Let's get this to Daniel Jean.
But there continues to be a lack of clarity about what exactly has happened here. So we are simply requesting that the National Security Advisor, who made the claim that the convicted attempted murderer was there as a rogue conspiracy in the Indian government, come to the committee to share exactly the same information that he provided to reporters and to media, to be accountable to Canadians through the members of Parliament, through the committee.
So, Rachel, is this worth staying up all night for, to try and force the Liberals when you know they're not going to do it?
Well, I think it's really disappointing, and Canadians want answers. There's so many things that have happened. There's still a lot of lack of clarity about what this trip was really about anyways, what was the measurable outcomes of this trip, and now here we are asking just to have Canadians understand and know what was said directly to the media, and make that transparent. So basically, you know, sadly, for 1 hour of testimony in committee, we are going to be staying up all night long to make sure that this government knows that they have to be accountable to Parliament and they have to be accountable to Canadians. And I think I exactly agree with you. This is a government that said they were going to be the most transparent government ever. And so one side to the end, here we are. It's a big mess. Canadians deserve better.
The trip was about, I mean, there's many people we can talk to about this trip. I'd love to talk to the Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce president about the trip, the Canada-India Business Council that arranged all the meetings, and that's what the trip was about. So I really hope that one day the media invites them in, and the opposition wants to talk to them also about, you know, all the business meetings that happen, all of the commercial trade that did take place. And that is truly what the trip was about.
But Mr. Jean allegedly told reporters that India was creating an embarrassment to Canada.
That's right.
And then India pushed back. This was a big diplomatic incident.
And which one is it?
And Canadians deserve clarity on that?
Yes. Well, right now, I feel that what we're trying to do is keep Canada's best interest at heart. And I don't know if the Conservatives are looking at another country's best interest, but we're going to be
The Liberals are not serving the best interests of Canada when they have a train wreck of a trip and then spin a narrative about either their mistakes or agree with a claim that would be made that then involves the Indian government, the High Commission, the Prime Minister's office, saying the accusations were baseless and unacceptable, creating a huge diplomatic conflict between Canada and the biggest democracy and fastest growing economy in the world, India. And again, the Liberals should be saying yes to that national security advisor coming to the committee to answer these questions to Canadians through members of Parliament, because he already briefed media.
You'll have a chance to vote on this tonight over and over and over. Okay, Rachel, I want to go to you on this one. The Senate, as you know, is teeing up a possible defeat of a bill. I know where the NDP is coming from on the Senate. They haven't got a whole lot of time for them. How do you feel that an unelected, basically unaccountable body is going to try and torpedo a key election promise that this government made and won a lot of votes on, I would probably suspect? What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I can't agree more. The reality, this is a very unaccountable Senate. They're not elected, and they're making decisions about legislation that will impact this whole country. And it is concerning because a lot of communities, I think from the very beginning, this has been just a schmozzle. You know, a lot of communities were calling my office saying, what do we do? People are opening up office. When is it going to be legal? What's happening? The RCMP are very concerned. There's a lot of concerns that are not being addressed quickly enough, and the resources aren't there. And now we have the Senate holding it up. So, you know, I think about the communities that are just going to have to deal with this over and over and over again. And so I challenge the government to start telling us, what does an independent Senate look like? And what about accountability to Canadians who elected a government because this is one of their priorities? So we have a lot of questions, and the Senate needs to answer.
I guess, Shannon, these are Conservatives mostly that are voting to kill the bill today. And I guess I got to ask you, like, do you support what your caucus colleagues are doing in there, which is killing a bill without even getting it to a place where you can discuss or amend it?
Well, I think part of the reason that Conservatives support senators being elected is because now you're clearly seeing the Senate does, in fact, have sweeping legislative powers, almost exactly the same as the House of Commons if they choose to exercise them. So, and as I think my colleague mentioned previously, it will be a test for those people who supported the Liberals and bought their line on the independent senators about just how much the Prime Minister actually agrees with that. But I have to agree with my colleague. You know, we have been saying this bill is being rushed. The Liberals were just trying to ram it through to meet an arbitrary deadline, I guess, for the one political promise they wanted to keep, despite the you know, the overwhelming testimony from witnesses and experts. Of course, they believe in evidence and expert-based decision making, from law enforcement saying they're not prepared for impaired driving, from medical representatives worried about the age of use or impact on kids, of municipalities saying they're not ready to deal with the bylaws.
Do you think the Senate should stop it, given what they are? I mean, you have a House of Commons that's expressed its will, even though Conservatives in general voted against it. But do you, in principle, find that offensive, that they're going to stop a bill without even discussing it and send it back?
Those are their powers, and since we believe that this bill is being rushed through, perhaps this will provide the opportunity for the sober second thought and compliance to full evidence, and actually take into account the overwhelming witness testimony through a committee.
It's not supposed to be a Kill Bill movie over there. They're supposed to do sober second thought and then pass it. Anyway, Ruby, what do you think of this?
It's just very interesting that Shannon pointed out the promise that we're trying to keep, and it's not the only one. We've kept many promises. The gun legislation
we're not going
is
through
also
all that.
one. No, we won't go through it all today, but I'd love to come back and go through all of them. But I mean, I do have confidence that the Senate is going to work through this. We don't have a policy in place that's really working for anybody on marijuana. So this is a very important piece of legislation, and I'm hoping that the Senate is going to recognize that they do have a role to play, but we are the government, and this is a mandate, a policy we ran on. A lot of thorough work has been put behind it to make sure that it's regulated in the proper way. And I have confidence that I think we're going to get somewhere by this summer. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think independence in the Senate is a good thing, but it's going to, you know, it's a work in progress, switching it over.
You still want to abolish it. We know that, Rachel. All right. Good discussion. Thank you both, all three of you. We'll see you next week for sure. Okay.